Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm very excited to put out my first video. I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more content in the next couple of months. My name's Adam. I am the owner of Queen City Disc Golf here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And while I run this shop on the side, my full-time job is in analytics and I love the sport of disc golf. One thing I wanted to try to do is bring some more analytics to the sport. For example, I had a question the other day that popped up in my head. Do my discs actually fly the way I think they fly? I keep 3 throwing putters in my bag. One is a Discraft Paul Macbeth Rubber Blend Luna. I have a Trash Panda Baseline Inner Core and a Discmania Active Premium Sensei. Generally in all spots in my bag, including my throwing putters, I like to keep something that's understable, straight, and overstable. And that's what I think these discs are in those specific slots. The Luna would be my understable disc, the inner core is my straight disc, and my Sensei is my overstable disc. Now, the Sensei is not terribly overstable, but it will hold a straight line and fade at the end and not turn over like the other two. But that hypothesis was based off me throwing the disc and watching the fly. And because I have a background in analytics, I wanted to see if I could actually measure that and then provide some tips on how other people could try to measure if their discs are actually flying the way they thought they should be flying as well. Now with this experiment, I don't necessarily know if my discs fly the way I think they fly. I think my Luna's understable, I think my Trash Panda inner core is straight, and I think my Sensei is a bit overstable. So the next few segments, I'm going to get up into the experiment setup and the math I'm going to use, how I'm going to measure. Some of it may be a little bit math heavy, so if you tune out or you skip forward a little bit, that's okay. But if you are interested in how I'm solving this problem, you're more than welcome to watch those parts.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the experiment I'm going to run, how I'm going to set it up. If you don't want to go into the full details, you can skip ahead. I'll have a summary at the end of how you can set up this experiment on your own and get some measurement results out of it. So the basis of this measurement is I'm going to put 2 points out in the field, and those are going to be my references, and I'm just going to be measuring distances between those 2 points to calculate other measurements that I'll be utilizing. So in this example, I'm going to set up a start point, and then I'm going to mark a target point about 300 feet away. And I'm doing my best to try to throw or release at that target. And I say do my best because I'm a very inconsistent player, as you will see in the data results later on. So as you can see from this slide, I want to measure 2 things to see how my discs are flying. One is the distance I actually throw, which would be the distance from the disc to the start point. The other would be the distance off center, in which is how far my disc finished left or right of this imaginary center line that runs from start to target. Unfortunately, the X is not measurable with a rangefinder, so this is something I'm going to have to calculate, and this is why I've kind of set up these 2 reference points to calculate this information. I want to get D, which is going to be the distance thrown, and I want to get X, which is the distance from my disc to this imaginary center line that runs from the starting point I throw from and the target. To get X, we're going to need to take an extra measurement and some equations to derive. So the other measurement we will need to get is Y, which is the distance from my disc to the target. Once I have that distance Y and that distance D, I can then use that information to calculate X. In this example, we know that X is going to intersect with that center line at a right angle, so therefore we can use some trigonometry and algebra and geometry to solve for that as long as we have angle A. This works in any scenario, whether my disc finishes less than the target, in this case here, or if my disc goes past the target, it's going to be the same equation. Now, unfortunately, we don't have angle A, so this is something we're going to need to calculate, and that's why we're taking those measurements D and those measurements Y and notating the measurement between start and target. And the equation we're going to use is from law of cosines, which looks something like the first line above. Again, there's a lot of variables, a lot of squaring, a lot of multiplying against cosine. But basically, we want to rearrange that equation to get what A may be. And so if you look at the second line, I can get A based off the distances I'm using in these measurements. So the 300-foot, whatever D is, and whatever Y is. And then once I have A, and because I already have Y, I can then plug those into the last equation to get my distance off center. So that's how I'm going to determine that. The one hitch here is if for some reason I do throw past the target, and given this target's at 300 feet, I'm no power thrower. I'm not going to throw my putters more than 300 feet. I can tell you that now. So if, for example, I've you do throw past 300 feet and you're using 300 feet as a marker or some other thing that you throw past as a marker, let's say you do 250 or 200 feet and you know you can throw past that. You can still use these equations to get A prime. So instead of getting A directly, we're going to get this A prime value. And then once you have that, you're just going to subtract 180 minus that A prime value to get you your A value to substitute in. And that's how it's not going to be a direct route, so you're going to have to do one more calculation. But it'll still get you that X value, which is going to be your distance off center line. So in summary, what you're going to need to do is set a start point, mark and measure the target downfield, and note that distance is T. You're going to throw your disc. You're going to measure the distance from the disc to start, which will be D. You're going to measure your distance from disc to target Y. In my example, if my disc finished left of center, I notated that with a negative distance Y so that I would have ultimately a negative distance off center at the end when I got to my equations, denoting that it finished left. Positive values would finish right. And then I put those above measurements, the T, D, and Y, into the following equations to get A. Again, we derived this earlier. Note if you do use Excel, convert the results to degrees using the degree function. So you're going to have to get A and then convert that to degrees so you can easily see it. And so if that value is greater than 90, then you want to subtract that A value from a 180 to get your new A value. And then you're going to plug A and Y that you should have now into the following equation. And again, note if you did convert this to degrees in Excel, you'll have to convert it back to radians. And then X will be your distance off center. And again, because we marked that Y negative if we are left to center, it'll mean a negative X will mean your disc finished left of center, positive being right of center. Now, if this seems like a little much for you and you don't want to do all this math, you can do steps 1 and 5. So you can set your start point, mark your measure your target downfield, notating the distance, throw your disc, measure your distance from your disc to the start, measure your distance from disc to the target. And I have created an Excel for easy use. You can go to my shop's website here and you can download that Excel for free. And all you need to do is plug in your information and it'll calculate that data for you and do a summary. The one thing it won't do is create charts for you, but if you really want to do that, you can do that on your own. All right, let's get into the results. So what I have displayed in this screen right here is all my throws that I threw. So again, I threw 5 shots at Hyzer, flat, and Anhyzer for each disc. So a total of 15 shots each disc, or 45 shots in total. And this just gives basically where my disc landed. The x-axis notates how far left or right the disc ended up off the center line. The y-axis shows how far the disc traveled between the uh, start and the target area. Note that the distance traveled from start to target area is not the actual distance it flew. That distance would be notated by like a diagonal from the origin to that point. And please note that the distance looks a lot larger than what it is, the values, because the x-axis is not scaled similarly to what the y-axis is. So if this was like 300 and negative 300 here, these points would condense towards the center line and it'll look more representative of where the putts actually landed, but it'd be very hard to visualize the data. So just by looking at this chart, we can see some trends already starting to emerge. We can see our Sensei, which is represented in a light blue, is either finishing along the center line or to the left with a few points off to the right. Luna tends to be to the right or along the center line with some over to the left. And then the inner core, some on the left, some on the center, some on the right, so it seems to be scattered throughout, which was kind of the hypothesis I had in the beginning. So this is beginning to support my initial hypothesis. So let's just get into all my throws and what that data looked like, and then we can break out each individual release angle. So here's a total. You can see my average distance for all three of these putters. The inner core was my farthest traveling putter. Luna and Sensei flew about the same, but wide variation in the Sensei from some bad releases, some early releases, some low releases. We do see that the Sensei does have the max distance of the three. I believe that one was either thrown flat or on a Anhyzer, if I don't remember correctly. But one of the more important metrics that I was looking at is average off center. So as you can see here, our average off center for Luna was about 14.66 feet. Inner core was 9 feet, and these are positive, so these are going to be to the right. Luna 14.66 feet to the right, inner core 9 feet to the right, and Sensei negative 1 foot to the left. So this just shows that my hypothesis of my Luna being my most understable disk was true, inner core being my straighter disk or kind of in the middle is true, and my Sensei being my more overstable. Now, because this is average, it is skewed by any extremes to the left or the right or any variations in my throwing, which does happen because I'm a very moderate disc golf player. So if we look at the number of discs to the center, to the right, and to the left, we can see that a lot of the Lunas either finish right or center with 3 on the left. We can see my inner core finished either to the center, to the right, or to the left. And the Sensei had the most at center and to the left with a few to the right. So again, those counts do just summarize what my hypothesis was about the stabilities of these discs. And then you can also see the average right and average left. So all the discs that finish right, you can see how far they finished right. The Sensei is way out there because I think I missed through them at some point or got hit by a gust of the headwind that was happening that day. And then average left, again, we can see that Sensei finishes farther left than most of them. Luna's kind of out there to the left, but I think there's a couple missed throws as well. Those are kind of useful, but again, they're skewed by the extremes. I do like looking at the counts of how many finish right, left, and center to get a better gauge. Plus, this is all three throws combined, so it's not really telling those individual stories. So let's look at Hyzer. We can see that in our Hyzer, our Sensei again just finishes center or left. And our core generally stays right around the center with our Luna 1 shot over to the left, but most of them are center or right. So again, this just backs up the information before about how I believe my disc would fly. And in this case, we can see our metrics again. We can see our inner core was our farthest flying disk. And with the lunar inner core on Hyzer, this is where I was able to achieve the uh, most distance out of those two disks, where the Sensei did not have as far as flying as those other two. And there's some couple bad releases for the Sensei. But again, our average distance off center, we can see that our Luna finished more right at about 13.9 feet. Our inner core was negative 1.87 feet to the left, and our Sensei finished negative 14 or 14.33 feet to the left. So again, this shows that my Sensei was overstable, inner core is about center, and Luna would finish right. And those counts back it up again as we went through. So if we look at flat, this is where I had some issues throwing Luna. I had a couple early releases before I was able to reel that in on those first two throws. Um, but if I wouldn't have those early releases, I believe most of those other Luna throws would have finished on the center or to the right. But again, this kind of backs up everything that I've already shown, but it just gives it on a flat release angle, Sensei, center, or left with one way out here, extreme uh, value here. Uh, So getting into the data on this one, we can see that the Luna inner core's average distance actually started to decline here. And I believe this is because these disks started to turn over and were landing before they could fight back and fade. Whereas the Sensei thrown flat, um, had a chance to actually fly or turn over a bit and then come back. We can see that the Sensei average distance began to outpace the Luna inner core. And again, the Luna shows very small numbers off center, but I think that was those two missed throws. But again, we're showing the Sensei did finish more right at 6.7 feet compared to 13.43. Both these finished off to the right, but the Sensei was less right. And then if you just look at the discounts, those kind of show what we've been saying before about all the stability of the disc. But we got some metric numbers here now. And finally, Anhyzer. So as you can see, this is where these discs start to skew towards the right, with the exception of the Sensei. We can see the inner core in the Sensei really begin to finish to the right. Sensei does fight back sometimes, but again, there was a headwind this day, so some of them did not turn back as much as I thought they were going to, or may hit a gust of wind and just continue to stay turned over on the Anhyzer line. So if we look at this distance again, we can see the Sensei still outpacing the inner core and Luna. Again, I think this is because those discs just never fought back out of their Anhyzer line, whereas the Sensei did have the capability to fight back to flat and fade at the ends. Get a max distance of 196 here. Again, still outpacing the max distance of the Luna inner core. And then, as we went through with all the other shots, these distance off center mostly aligned. The Sensei is about 4.6 feet to the right, inner core 15, and Luna's about 30 feet to the right. So this is the smallest off to the right, then this, and then this. So this is still finishing more left than the other two putters. And that's backed up by the discount numbers of how many discs finish center, how many discs finish right, and how many discs finish left. So what do all these numbers mean, and what can I take away from this? Is I had an idea of hypothesis of how my disc would fly. I went through all the numbers, looking at my total, my Hyzer, flat, and Anhyzer. I had the assumptions about how my disc would fly, but I had no actual metrics. And so what this experiment did is it actually gave me the metrics of how my disc flew, and gave me some objective metrics. Now, granted, there is some variability in my throwing, but that's because I'm a moderate disc golf player, as I've said before. That would be expected. So the nice thing is now I can potentially use this information out on the course. I know that my Sensei is going to be overstable, so if I want something that's going to go straight and finish left on a backhand throw for me, I know I can probably throw my Sensei. If I need a tunnel shot, I can most likely throw my inner core. It also gives me some distances. Now, these aren't, again, precise measurements. They're just generalizations. They're just help me to give me an idea of how my discs are flying.
And if you made it this far, I thank you for watching the video. What my ultimate conclusion was after just going over my results from the test uh, is that my hypothesis was pretty much correct. My Luna was pretty much my understable disc. My inner core was my kind of straight flying disc, a bit more understable than what I thought. And my Sensei was my overstable disc. As I said before, not too overstable, but it will fly straight and fade out. What's nice to know about these objective measures now is now I realize that my inner core and my Luna are probably getting pretty similar in flight. So in the next few months, it may be time to substitute one of those out of my bag and replace it with something else, or shift the Sensei down to my straight disc and get something more overstable. So that's nice to know. I did not know that going into it. I thought my inner core was a little bit more straight than what I thought, but seeing these actual measures shows me that my assumptions and my hypothesis of what I'm observing may not be entirely accurate. But other than that, thanks for watching. I look forward to trying to do some more content or videos bringing analytics into disc golf, or how you can improve your game using analytics in disc golf. If you like this video, you can support us by sharing this video, liking and subscribing to the channel, or visiting our website at queencitydiscgolfcincy.com. The website will be in the description. Thanks again. If you want to support